All right, welcome O Level Biology students to the absolute ultimate masterclass on plant transport systems. I'm your host, and today we're diving on a microscopic journey straight into the inner workings of plants. We're going to break down exactly how plants move water, minerals, and food around. I'll be sharing the in-depth concepts, plus some really good tips and tricks so you can perfectly retain this for your exams. Let's get into it. Seriously, just think about that for a second. Imagine trying to pump water 100 feet straight up into the air without a motor, without a pump, and literally without a single moving part. Sounds impossible, right? Yet, plants and these massive trees, they pull off this incredible gravity-defying feat of biological engineering every single day. Today, we're going to crack the code on exactly how they pull it off. So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, the root hair water trap. 2, xylem, the water highway. 3, transpiration and the pull. 4, factors affecting transpiration. 5, translocation, moving the food. And 6, plant anatomy, blueprints. Section 1, the root hair water trap, where the journey begins. Okay, check out this unique structure. This is a single-celled extension of an epidermis cell down in the root. See how it extends out kind of like a long, thin finger into the surrounding soil? If you've ever grown seedlings in moist air and noticed that little white furry layer on the roots, well, those are the root hairs. And that shape? Definitely not an accident. It's a brilliant biological adaptation specifically designed to maximize absorption. Now, pay attention here because these are massive exam points. Why exactly is the root hair cell shaped this way? Well, first, those long, thin projections massively increase the surface area so it can reach way more soil water. Second, you've got a semi-permeable cell membrane allowing for selective uptake, while the tough outer cell wall gives structural support. That way the cell doesn't just burst from osmotic pressure when it swells up with water. Third, the large central vacuole is totally packed with solutes. And here's a huge retention tip for you. This high solute concentration inside creates a really steep concentration gradient. That drives water into the cell naturally via osmosis. Meanwhile, the cytoplasm has proteins that actually use energy to pull in mineral ions through active transport. So remember, water moves passively by osmosis, ions move actively. Lock that distinction in for your test. Section 2, xylem, the water highway, riding the upward current. So water doesn't just teleport to the top of the plant. It's a whole cellular relay race. You can trace the water flowing from the soil into the root hair, straight across those internal root cells until it hits that vertical pipe on the right. That's your xylem vessel. This exact 4-step chronological pathway is absolutely crucial. You are very likely going to be asked to sequence this on an exam. Step 1, water enters the root hair via osmosis. Step 2, it diffuses from cell to cell or cell wall to cell wall, straight across the root cortex. Step 3, it hits the xylem and shoots rapidly up the stem. And finally, step 4, it reaches the leaf and diffuses out into the surrounding mesophyll cells. Visualize that exact 1, 2, 3, 4 pathway, from the soil straight to the leaf. But what actually is this xylem highway made of? Well, look at these cross-sections. Xylem really has 2 main jobs, transporting water and physically supporting the plant so it doesn't wilt and fall over. To pull this off, these vessels are essentially dead, hollow tubes. They have absolutely no cytoplasm or cell contents blocking the way. And see those thick outer walls? They're stiffened with this really tough, water-resistant material called lignin. The cells are joined end-to-end with no cross walls whatsoever, creating one continuous, waterproof, one-way tube straight up to the canopy. Section 3, transpiration and the pull. Defying gravity. All right, grab your mental highlighters, guys. Transpiration is defined as the physiological loss of water in the form of water vapor, primarily from the stomata in the leaves. Now, this isn't just some random side effect. This simple act of evaporation is literally the invisible engine driving the entire system. Let's trace it visually here on this leaf cross-section. Water from the xylem diffuses into the mesophyll cells. From the surfaces of those cells, it evaporates right into the leaf's internal air spaces. This builds up a really high concentration of water vapor inside the leaf. Because the outside air has way less water vapor, the water diffuses right down its concentration gradient, escaping out into the atmosphere through those tiny little pores called stomata. But here's the real biological mystery. Sure, water is evaporating from the top. We get that. But how does water leaving a leaf magically pull new water up from the roots, which could be dozens of meters below? This is where the whole giant straw analogy brilliantly comes into play. It all comes down to the transpiration pull. When water evaporates, it creates a low osmotic pressure in the leaves, which generates an actual physical tension inside the xylem tube. Now, because water molecules are polar, they form hydrogen bonds with each other. This causes what we call cohesion, meaning water molecules essentially stick to each other like a chain. They also experience adhesion, sticking to the cellulose in the xylem's cell walls. So when the water molecule at the very top evaporates out of the leaf, it tugs the next one up, which pulls the next one, lifting this continuous, unbreakable column of water all the way from the roots. Section 4. Factors affecting transpiration, controlling the flow. Okay, this cable right here, it's basically your ultimate exam cheat sheet. The plant isn't always pulling water at the exact same speed, right? So let's understand the why behind the environmental factors that act like the gas pedal or the brakes. Wind speed? That increases transpiration because moving air sweeps away the saturated water vapor from the leaf's surface, which keeps the diffusion rate really fast. Temperature? Increases it. Heat gives water molecules higher kinetic energy, so they evaporate faster. Humidity. Now this is the one that decreases transpiration. High humidity means the outside air is already full of water, so that diffusion gradient is way less steep. And finally, light intensity. It increases transpiration because bright light forces the plant to open its stomata for photosynthesis, leaving the doors wide open for water vapor to escape. If you understand the biological reason, you will never have to blindly memorize this table. Section 5. Translocation. Moving the food. The plant's delivery service. We've mastered the one-way water system, so let's shift gears to the plant's two-way network. Here's your second massive definition to lock in. Translocation is the movement of sucrose and amino acids from a source to a sink through the phloem. Notice the key differences from the xylem here. We're moving sugars and proteins, not just water. We're using the phloem tissue, not the xylem. And critically, while xylem only flows up, the phloem can transport solutes up or down the stem. To really get this two-way street, you've got to know these two terms, source and sink. A source is the organ actually producing the food. Usually that's the leaves, making sucrose via photosynthesis. A sink is where the plant uses or stores that food, like the roots buried down below, or maybe a growing fruit up top. The plant is incredibly efficient. Food travels exactly from where it's made, the source, to exactly where it's needed, the sink. You can see this side-by-side superhighway in action right here. You've got the blue xylem on the left carrying water strictly upwards. Right next door is the phloem. See those red arrows? They're moving sucrose from the green leaf cell, our source, downward to the purple root cell, our sink. They operate right next to each other to keep the whole plant alive and thriving. Section 6. Plant anatomy, blueprints. Mapping out the vascular system. We need to map out where these superhighways are actually located within the plant, and this is a totally classic exam diagram. You need to be able to instantly identify the xylem and phloem in a root versus a stem. Look at the transverse section of the root on the left. The xylem is that distinct red star-shaped structure right in the very center, with the phloem tucked neatly between the arms of the star. Now compare that to the stem on the right. In the stem, the vascular bundles are arranged in an outer ring, with the xylem on the inside of the bundle and phloem on the outside. So star in the center for the root, outer ring for the stem. Keep that visual locked in your mind for test day. Well, we've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, from the microscopic root hairs pulling in water, up those lignified xylem tubes, all driven by the tension of transpiration, while the phloem ships sucrose from source to sink. But I want to leave you with one final thought. We learned that the upward pull of water relies absolutely on a continuous, unbroken chain of cohesive water molecules. So, if a single air bubble enters the xylem and snaps that delicate chain, how does a massive tree like a giant redwood survive a hot, windy drought? Keep pondering the incredible resilience of plant engineering. Make sure to review these concepts, and I'll see you in the next explainer.